Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
No strangers here. That's what I wanted to talk about today. No strangers here. You know, with all of our mask wearing and with our gestures from a distance, but no hugs or handshakes or fewer or maybe on the sly or only in certain circles or wherever it is that you practice, but still we're distant and we have to be safe. We're trying to protect ourselves and one another. But in this year and a half of being suspicious, it's turned us into germaphobes, some of us, and some of us sociophobes, just not really sure that it crowds more than people, and people I don't know, agoraphobia. I mean, that's on the rise too. There's all kinds of things that start to play in the back of our minds about our security and our safety, and really what this pandemic has really wrought in so many ways in our lives, that it has separated us, and the polarization that didn't start with the pandemic but has been exacerbated by it, it seems to me, has made us even more foreign to one another. We don't understand. How could you think like that? You'll never understand. I don't have the words to explain to you why I think differently or how I see it. It is so hard for us, it seems right now, to remember that we are really connected at depth from the beginning, in purity, in strength, in power, in love. Love. It feels more like a world full of strangers at times. But what does oneness really mean? What does oneness really mean? Oneness to one another. It means no limits. It means that underneath everything that we see in this world of connection and superficiality, there actually is a fabric of oneness that connects us. It's scientifically true, but it is also spiritually true. And at depth, I think there are times when we recognize it. And I'm just speaking right now, I'm going to speak mostly about humanity, because that's big enough and diverse enough as it is, that no matter what part of the planet we come from or have inhabited, that we have inherited genes and DNA from, no matter how we have morphed and mutated in our growth and in our body function or appearances or size or any other parts, that we've adapted to live in the world at certain parts of the globe that needed adaptation. We've done that. And that has been perceived by us through our evolutionary process as danger. And we continue to carry that vibe, that reflex, and extend it to people who just don't think the same way we do at times. And so it's time for us to be conscious of how that insidiously keeps us from the connection of oneness. I said oneness has no limits. I will remind you, healthy boundaries, however, are a good spiritual practice. Yes, I know. I always feel like I've got to say that for the few who are still, thinking that if they just tried harder or stayed a little longer, or that if they just haven't done it long enough, that somehow it's on them to make this relationship work. And I'm here to tell you, if you're having to say that again to yourself, no. You call up your girlfriend or your boyfriend and you get out of there, you know? This is a time for us to distance in healthy ways, all right? I'm not going to teach that today, but I'm not giving you fuel for that thought. That's all I'm saying. So I want you to know that healthy boundaries are important because they're flexible ones. And they're flexible with people as we learn and adapt. But if there are people who are never any good for us, then they don't need to be in our lives either. And that's healthy, and that's important. And our oneness can go underneath this physical experience, and we can pray for them, and we can hold them as whole, and we can cheer them on to find their way in the world and make their lives better and healthy. And we can pray for that. And that's how we stay connected. That's how our oneness works. Because prayer is our connection to everyone. And it is with the intention of our hearts and our love that we make a difference in the world. And it's how it is that we help lift the vibration of the world. Now today, typically, I would turn to Jesus because we talk about love. Jesus is the guy, right? But you know what? Sometimes we have overheard Jesus, so much so that sometimes if I use some of the things that you've heard already, you're going to jump back to referencing things that you've known or grown up with, and you kind of stop listening to me because you already know this, because you already heard this before. So I'm bringing a different teacher to you today, and I'm going to be introducing to you someone that you've heard before, but you haven't heard him this way before. I'm going to be introducing Albert Einstein, theologian, today. I'm going to quote some things from Albert Einstein. I'm not going to put equations up here because Albert Einstein really wasn't that good at numbers. I don't know if you know this history about him, but he actually flunked out of arithmetic when he was a kid growing up. He didn't like numbers. He didn't like math, but became, of course, one of the most famous physicists of all time. But the way that he really explored the truth of the universe was he did it with his mind. He did it with adventuring beyond in concepts. And he got to the point where his stature was great, where he could actually not only imagine how the universe was really connected. If this was true, what else might be true? How does that problem get solved? He didn't do it with a pencil and paper and mathematics. He did it with his ability to invoke an experience of the truth. There's something more than his mind. I'll tell you that in a minute. He did that by understanding the concepts, and then when he got to be a certain stature, he handed that off to his graduate students to work out the actual equations. And to this day, there are still some concepts, some theories that they are still working on and trying to disprove or prove mathematically. They're in the process of doing that, and they have made success over the years. Albert Einstein said, concerning matter, we've been all wrong. What we have called matter is energy, whose vibration has been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. The vibration lowers to the point where we can now touch it, feel it. Matter is spirit reduced to a point of visibility. And then he says, there is no matter. Matter is spirit. What do we think spirit is? He doesn't say. We're on our own to explore what is the fabric of spirit that we are immersed in, that we are connected by, who we are made up of. He says our separation from each other is an optical illusion. Our separation from each other is really just what looks like the end of my field, but my body is not me. I think we're all pretty secure in knowing that while we see our bodies and we identify and we recognize one another by bodies, that in fact we know we are more than them, yes, because we operate in many dimensions. And so those dimensions and even the mind that we have and the heart that we have actually is a field, an aura around here. And science has already proven that our ability, that our minds actually are not contained in our brains, which is an organ stuck in our cranium, but our minds are actually non-local, and that they actually are enveloping our physical being and connecting us in amazing ways, and acting on different parts of our bodies such that there can be reactions that happen from emotional awarenesses that are faster than our nerves could conduct, that there's biochemistry that happens almost at a quantum speed because our minds are non-local. When something vibrates, he says, the electrons of the entire universe resonate with it. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. There is no separation. We are in an entire field, material connection to everything. That means we can impact it. It means that we are impacted by it. He goes on and he says, the greatest tragedy of human existence is the illusion of separateness. The greatest tragedy of human existence is the illusion of separateness. Tell that to Facebook. Start a meme of your own. The greatest letdown here is that we have forgotten who we are. Who's part of your tribe? Who are the ones that you fall to when you need reassurance and when you need connection? Who are the ones in your life that understand you? You can let your hair down. You don't have to watch your words. You can say what you think. You can relax around. Who's your tribe? Who's closest to you? Everybody needs that. I hope you have that. But don't stay so connected to that you don't venture out into the world and carry your beautiful perspective to the world, that you don't share it with others, that you don't let other people hear your heresies from time to time and say the things that, well, you believe, because the world needs it. We need to hear from each other. It's how we grow. Who's part of your tribe? We all have to belong. Belonging is such a key part of our lives, and it's a spiritual value and truth. Mother Teresa said, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. I used that on Wednesday night talking about something else, the Bodhisattva's compassion. But in that, I want you to hear, too, that this ministry has created a set of values that we worked on together at many levels in our leadership and in our ministry. And we came to 3 of being, knowing that we are children of God, that we are connected to something greater than ourselves, that we are becoming because we are revealing and expressing that divinity through our work and through healing and through teaching and through expression and belonging. And this is how we state it. We create a spiritual home for all people, knowing that we are one body and that we belong to each other. Yeah, we kind of ripped off Mother Teresa a little bit with that because it's so good, because it's so true, because it's our aspiration of remembering that we belong to one another We believe we are strangers in a world of differences and diversity at times, and that we can't understand or be understood by them. But Jesus, I will bring him up, Jesus taught the Judaic law by applying it to literally everyone. This was his heresy. He didn't keep it in the tribe that he grew up in. He said, love your neighbor as yourself. He didn't make that up. That is actually in the Torah. It is actually, what he was taught. But he applied it everywhere, to everyone. Love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't talk about strangers, like watch out for them, like don't invite them in, like keep your door locked. No, throw your door open. Love your neighbor as yourself. In harmony and balance, not instead of yourself. Healthy self-love is the only way we can reach out and love others. And loving others also helps us to accept our own stuff, right? Our own imperfections, looking past the imperfections of others, whatever those are. We could just call them spiciness, the spiciness of other people. Whoa, that's some spiciness over there. But really, who are we to judge? We're here to love. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love is a powerful principle, healing, attracting, integrating power. It is our ability to do that. Compassion is talked about a lot. And I'm going to argue here that compassion is not exactly love per se. Love is truly a power. It is truly an ability to connect, to heal, to magnetize, to draw to us, to reach out where it appears not to be. It flows wherever there seems to be no love. It is drawn to it, knocks at the door until it pulls the door open and wanders in and loves anyway, right? That's love. Compassion, however, is a different thing. It's a precursor to a state of love. This is my take on it. Take me with a grain of salt if you want. I call compassion a spaciousness of the heart. It is the opening of the heart. It is the expansion of the heart. It is literally, instead of closing down and separating out, it is an opening of the heart that is an embrace of everything and everyone, one at a time. Just trying to include, trying to find the lovability, trying to find a way to identify with, to hold and say, that's in me too. You know what? I felt that way too. You know what? That has happened to me too. You know what? I have said that too. I have been there too. I know what that feels like. A compassion, a spaciousness of the heart. There's not a decision to be compassionate, but a decision to remove the defenses, the blinders, the rationalization that keeps our hearts hardened. This is where we mentally change our minds, is that we say, you know what? I'm going to find it in myself to let go and accept something that I don't want to show the world right now, but I'm going to breathe into it and I'm going to be it and love it anyway. And if I do that, you know what? It intuitively, instinctively, instantly becomes possible for me to love it in you. Love around it, maybe. Love you with it. I suddenly get you, because I finally accepted me, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. Take it in any order you need to. We see our common humanity in compassion. in real love, in not seeing strangers. We start to see we're just different flavors. We're just, different varieties of spiciness. Or not spicy enough, maybe, I don't know. However you want to look at it. Albert Einstein, psychologist, says, a human being experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. Sorry, let me say that again. A human being experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. Optical delusion of consciousness. If I see you as different, I'm not seeing you straight. I'm not seeing rightly. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, he says, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us, while our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Albert Einstein, psychologist. This isn't a spiritual tradition in Buddhism that is a Buddhist tradition alone. It is a human gift and power, practice that we're called to. This is a way for us to see how it is that we are actually connected to everything that is true, scientifically true about us. Albert Einstein, poet, says, we are souls dressed up in sacred biochemical garments. I don't know that that rhymes, but, and our bodies are the instruments through which our souls play their music. You know what? He moved past his mind, and he was sailing out across the universe on his heart. His mind could not have shown him that. It had to be. Some other part of his soul was being revealed, was being used to reach that. We use our minds to defend ourselves against our fear of the world. That's what we use our minds for, which is why we have to beware of this great instrument and apply it only in service to what our hearts would lead us to. In other words, this should not be the decider. I know I've said that many times up here, and you're probably still not paying attention. But this is not meant to be the ones to make the decision. This is to follow the urging of the heart. If this is true, how then shall I navigate it? Right? That's what you use this for. First this, then that, then I move here. I look that up. I call my friend. I look it up online. That's what I do in service to what is the pull of my heart. Albert Einstein, mystic, said, I think 99 times and find nothing. I stop thinking, swim in silence, and the truth comes to me. Every mystic I've ever read did that. Open our hearts fearlessly to the world. Albert Einstein, spiritual teacher, says, everything is energy, and that is all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. Match the frequency of what it is that you want to create, and you cannot help but get that experience, that reality. Duh, we teach that here. He says it cannot be any other way. This is not philosophy, he says. This is physics, straight up. I threw the straight up in, but that's what he would have said. I want to read a story to you. This comes from Rachel Naomi Reman. Kitchen table wisdom, one of my favorite stories. You like to be read to? My grandchildren do. Here it goes. Isaac was a survivor, liberated from a concentration camp in 1945. He had come to America, worked and studied hard, was now a respected research physicist. His first words endeared him to me, Rachel says. His Slavic accent reminded me of some of the older people in my own family. 2 years before, he had been diagnosed with cancer. Now he had come to our retreat for people with cancer to see if he could engage and possibly defeat this enemy with the power of his mind, the aspect of his being he trusted most profoundly. At Commonweal, which is the program that she gave to help people overcome and deal with the cancer healing process, she said, "We touch people a great deal more than was his custom." Disconcerted at first, he would ask, "What is all this? All this huggy? What is this love the strangers? What is this?" But he let us hug him anyway. And after a while, he began to hug us back. The Commonweal retreat lasts for a week, but by the fourth day, the inner silence, which has been slowly generated by the daily yoga practice, has become very deep, and spontaneous insights often arise. Sometimes the silence allows people to find their own truth for the first time. On the fourth day in the meditation, which began in the morning session, Yitzhak had an experience. It seemed to him that through his closed lids, he could see a deep pinkish light, very beautiful and tender. Startled, he realized this light surrounded him and came in some mysterious fashion from his chest. When he told us about it later, he said it was like being inside of a big rose, very touching because his last name means little rose in Polish. In the moment, however, he had become frightened, and he was aware that the light had a direction. It was pouring out of his chest. He described it like a big hemorrhage. It seemed to be coming from his heart, and it made him feel vulnerable. Yitzhak had survived the concentration camps. For many years, he had lived, as it were, in a world of strangers. A deeply loving person. Since his experience as a boy, he had been very cautious with respect to his heart, loving only those people, only family, those closest to him. This way of living had helped him feel safer, had worked for him until now. But there's often fear behind such a weary lifestyle, and now for the first time he'd begun to feel some of this. It was uncomfortable for him. The retreat staff dealt with his discomfort in the way they deal with everything else. They didn't try to fix it or explain away his experience or try to interpret it for him. Instead, they listened with interest and continued to support him as he tried to work out its meaning for himself. Over the next few days, he seemed to relax more, to become more open. Sunday, in the last session of the retreat, I tried to tie up the loose ends. I knew Yitzhak had been troubled by his experience, so I asked him how things were. He laughed. "Better," he said, and began to tell us of a walk he had taken on the beach the day before. In his mind, he had talked to God, asking God what all this was about, and had received comfort. Touched, I asked him what God had to say to him. He laughed again. Rachel, I say to him, "God, is it okay to love strangers?" And God says, "Yitzhak, what is the strangers? You make strangers. I don't make strangers." Albert Einstein philosopher. When you examine the lives of the most influential people who have ever walked among us, you discover one thread that winds through them all, he says. They have been aligned first with their spiritual nature, and only then with their physical lives. Compassion says we share humanity. Who can be a stranger? Albert Einstein, manifester, says, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form into another. And guess what tool you use to do that? The transforming power of your love, of your heart. Nothing else, nothing short of that will change the world. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. That's why I say, no strangers here. So I'm going to invite you to join me now in prayer. And of course, you can already feel your heart is open and soft, can't you? Isaac, I make no strangers. You make strangers. And so we open our hearts now to no strangers, but to love. We allow our hearts to expand, and we move and open now in knowing that every soul we meet and see has a pure, perfect wholeness of innocence deep within, waiting for us to discover and to love. We are connected to that. And every time we discover it in another, we find it in ourselves. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.